a little bit of a problem earlier, but let me see. I'm on camera. Okay. There will be another episode of Riding Away with Dave, and I'm here with well-respected environmental guru Harvey Wasserman. And there he is right there. And Bob, are you well-respected too? Yeah, listen to him. Bob Fitrakis, and you've got some good street credentials too. Harvey, go ahead and give your credentials again for the audience and stuff. Let everybody know who you are.
Well, I run the solartopia.org website, solartopia.org. I've written a book called Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth, and am senior advisor to Greenpeace USA. So we are taking a pretty strong stand on this BP apocalypse, this corporate apocalypse that's destroying the Gulf of Mexico and so much of the rest of the world.
That's right. And that's one of the things that I wanted to hook up with you and do a show and talk about what's going on. In fact, I've got I've got a couple other headlines, and Bob, you're going to be able to chime in on here too. And here's one of them right now, the big spill. But as we talked about before, it's not really a spill. It's a gusher. Go ahead and elaborate on that.
Well, this is an underwater gusher, and it's like poking a hole in somebody's vein and having them sit in the bathtub and see what happens to the bathtub. That's what happens to our oceans. There doesn't seem any real prospect. BP does not have the technology or the knowledge or the commitment, as a matter of fact, to stop this gusher from destroying the Gulf of Mexico. They don't have the assets to cover the destruction. They certainly don't have any insurance. And the question now is, why do we allow private corporations to deploy technologies that can destroy so much of the earth? The BP clearly doesn't have the assets to cover this, and I want to add that none of the nuclear power plants, none of the owners, none of the corporate owners of nuclear power plants have the assets to cover a disaster at a nuclear plant. So the larger question we have to ask is, in a so-called free market economy, why do we allow corporations to deploy technologies that they don't have insurance to cover the potential or the real public damage, and they don't have the assets to cover it? There's not a single corporation in the country or in the world that owns a nuclear plant that has sufficient assets to cover the damage that could be done. BP does not have the assets to cover the damage from the Deepwater Horizon. Sooner or later, probably sooner, they will go into receivership. And all the people who have been harmed and destroyed by this, which is everybody, ultimately, by this gusher, are going to stand in line for BP's paltry assets and get a couple cents on the dollar.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go ahead, Bob. I want to go ahead and get your take, because one of the things I think you can add some good flavor, since you're the political guy, is, in your opinion, what's your take on the Obama administration and the lack of action at the early stages? It's just kind of like your overview on what's going on, because this looks like this is going to be around for a long time, and it's just going to be a disaster, like Harvey talked about earlier, something we've never seen before. So why don't you elaborate on that?
Well, one of the key issues is people should be concerned about socialism here and subsidies. Is if you're saying they're only responsible for $75 million in damages, all of us are socializing their stupidity, their ignorance. We're subsidizing the destruction of the Gulf. If they actually were liable, they might not have built it, or they might have built it better. Is that when the O-rings began to come up, being pumped out, they would have shut the thing down. So when people talk about socialism, we're socializing this disaster. Now, the problem, I think, with the Obama administration is that on one level, there's not a whole lot they can do, right? We've never really invested in the technology, because not even BP, with all its assets, knows how to shut it down. I mean, what everyone should realize now is there's no real policy solution to this, is that they were counting on it not happening. The other thing is, in that situation, what matters more than anything often is symbolic gestures. And one of the things I think Obama should have done is he should have been like, I mean, this is the environmental Dunkirk. He should have been like Winston Churchill. He should have mobilized every available ship along all the coast of the U.S., the Great Lakes. He should have bought ships back, military ships. He should have done everything humanly possible, even if he failed, to keep that oil from destroying Louisiana and the Gulf coastline. And what he did is essentially he deferred like a junior corporate partner to the corporations that are running this country. Now, it's one thing to say, look, big oil owned this country under George Bush. Now what you can say is, well, they might not own the country, but the government and Obama are like junior partners. And he did nothing, essentially, to make people feel that there was any hope.
Right, and the question then is, why are we still in Afghanistan? Why are we still in Iraq? Why do we have 50,000 troops in Okinawa? God knows how many in Germany. We have troops in 100 countries around the world. We're spending $1 trillion a year on our military, at least. To do what? Here we're attacked. Essentially, BP has launched a lethal attack on the Gulf of Mexico, on Texas, and the states from Texas around to Florida,
Mississippi, Alabama, Florida.
Every 10 days in Exxon Valdez.
Well, actually, I think it's going to turn out to be every day in Exxon Valdez. And every piece of the military should have been in the Gulf of Mexico immediately. BP should have been taken over immediately by the U.S. government and all their assets seized and all their guys put in jail. And the U.S. military, every ship at sea, every soldier should have been standing in the Gulf of Mexico protecting our shores. And instead, Obama deferred to the corporation, which turns out to have no clue whatsoever as to how to stop this, and has let it happen. Now, you have to backtrack and say, why is it that a private corporation has been allowed to deploy technologies for which they have no answer when it comes to an apocalyptic event? Now, we in the world have seen 2 apocalyptic events now. We saw Chernobyl, which spread a radioactive cloud all over the world. That cloud came to the United States within 10 days, killed birds in Port Reyes National Seashore. 60% of the bird births died, and that cloud was detectable all the way across the northern tier of the United States. We now have a study that just came out this spring that shows, based on 5,000 studies, that 1 million people were killed by Chernobyl.
Wow.
Now, if Chernobyl had happened anywhere in the United States, God forbid, any one of the 104 reactors in the United States, if we had had a Chernobyl, the million death estimate would have been 10 times as high. There's nowhere in the United States that you could have a Chernobyl-sized accident that would not kill 10 million people.
Wow.
And there is
and do
no
how
country,
much more damage for how long?
Well, it's incalculable. You're talking about trillions, but it's really incalculable. Now, there is not a single corporation in the United States that owns and operates a nuclear power plant that has the assets, let alone the insurance, even the gross assets, to cover the damage from a nuclear plant. And now they're talking about building more. In fact, this administration, Obama, wants to give taxpayer loan guarantees to build new nuclear plants. Now, there is no assets to cover a disaster, a catastrophe in a nuclear plant. If this administration has a plan to deal with a nuclear reactor meltdown that's any better than the one that they've used at the Deepwater Horizon, i.e. none. And if there's any financial plan,
well, what about
then I'd like to see it. So we're deploying another technology, nuclear, which is even worse than the Deepwater Horizon. But the fact of the matter is that in the Deepwater Horizon, we've seen a private corporation deploy a technology capable of destroying a huge chunk of the earth with no insurance and no contingency plan. And the U.S. government has also had no contingency plan.
Well, that's been my biggest concern is, where was Plan B? Where was Plan C, Plan D? Okay, guys, you don't want to miss part 2. Plenty of action in it, so be ready to ride the wave with Dave. The Big Oil Disaster, part 2. Check it out right here on YouTube.